welcome guys. Today we are just doing a quick little start of the Falcon and priming the oil system. I know it's been a while since we've really had any content on this car, so I wanted to basically just bring it into the viewers and let you guys see the car. There's not, I mean, if you've been following the channel for a while, you kind of know what it is, but I'll walk and talk and we'll kind of just do a quick overview of what we got here. Sitting in front of us, let me flip this around. So this is a 1968 Ford Falcon Futura. I believe it was a sports coupe. This thing originally came with a 289 and a C4, 289 two barrel with a C4 transmission. This thing it's gone through two iterations. It first had the 408. This is the third motor that has been in it since I've owned it. So we first started off with a 289 C4 two barrel. It was a disc brake car, and I had that for about a year and a half. I drove that till the wheels fell off. The 289, I never killed the 289. I was a teenager at that time, and I was just getting on it, and it held together pretty good. But anyways, fast forward 10 years later, and I was able to get a 408 Windsor, which you see sitting right here. Is a 408 Windsor behind a Tremec TKO 600 5-speed. Now, this particular 408, this build started back in '09, and what you can see here, which let me take you around, this is an actual Boss 351 block from Ford Racing. So you can see the Ford Racing Ford Racing engraved on the block there, but the Boss 351, there it is. I don't know if you guys can see it there. So when this block first came out, like in 2009, 2011, I was in the desert, and back then you still had magazines. And I remember reading the Muscle Mustangs and Fast Forwards, and seeing that block had emerged. And I was pretty excited about it. First, they dropped the 8.2 deck, and then they dropped the 9.5 deck. They offer this in standard bore, big bore, and I believe the 9.2 deck. This is a 9.5 standard bore. So anyways, we had this in there for about 10 years. This thing was rock solid behind that 5-speed. Fast forward, now sits in here is a 430-inch Windsor. And this is a 13-to-1 motor. It's a Dart Iron Eagle block, Lanati Signature Series crank. Trick Flow Twisted Wedge R series heads from TEA. These things were CNC ported. They're 208 and 160 valves. Anyways, long story short, is this motor made 716 horsepower, 592 pounds of torque on the dyno. That dyno video is actually on the channel, so if you go back and you watch that, you'll see. So we ended up doing that. We dynoed with an 1 7/8 or 1 3/4 headers, I don't remember, but long story short is we swapped that out because after we went through the dyno and we began the process of putting this engine back in this car, we basically knew that it wasn't going to be that solid, or we wanted to address the Ford shock tower suspension system. So at first I was going to go with a Roadster shop spec chassis or a fast track chassis, but it would have been a risk trying to put this car in a chassis because they didn't have one except for the Mustang, and we're pretty confident that it didn't fit. There is a place out in Australia called Moit's Motor Cars, and they actually do have, let me turn this back around. They actually do have a XY and XR Falcon. And so that particular Falcon does have a chassis built by Roadster Shop. However, it was proprietary, and Roadster Shop was not going to release it to someone because they had an agreement with Moit's Motor Cars in Australia. So anyways, fast forward, we ended up going with the Detroit Speed Alumaframe. And so that was a huge undertaking. This front suspension is for the 64 to 70 Mustang. It requires you grafting in a C6 Corvette style front subframe. And then, as you can see, I mean, it's just trick. You can lower the engine. We got the engine lowered all the way in the car, and so what that allowed us to do was put this motor back in, and then the hood scoop that's always been on this car that you guys have known this car for over the years. I shaved off this top little stud here, and we're gonna put the hood scoop back on. So, anyways, fast forward, we got this in there. It only fits with a Fox body pan. We know the Fox body pan, you're kind of liable of that front little sump on a Fox body pan can starve for oil in certain situations. So we said, F it, let's just go with a dry sump. So what we did, shout out to Tony Auto Engineering, that's TOE. We went with, and shout out to Aviade. We went with their 3-stage dry sump system, where you can see the pump there. And then one of their pans, their pan is completely flat, so it clears the Detroit Speed subframe by a lot. My goal is to get this thing up on a lift so you guys can really get I can really get underneath here and show you everything on the car. So significant chassis stiffening was done to the car just because it had a G-link in the rear, and that stuff started to show signs of fatigue from the previous back half. It started showing fatigue, and we didn't want to fuck around and have this thing come apart on me. So this is the reason why I want to get this thing on the lift to show you. We believe this car will go dead nut straight now. So as I continue to kind of break it in and shake it down, one of the goals is to take this place somewhere where I can launch it. This is a serious car now. It's no longer something that I would consider a beginner build. It's got a serious motor in there now. So, yeah. So where was I? Anyways, but look at this Detroit Speed system. I mean, it's got it is pretty trick. It allows you to, obviously you can adjust the ride height, but looking at their adjustments, the camber, caster, and toe in, you got 2 of those star things there. You can actually degree. So you got 2 facing up in the beginning of the upper strut mount. So there's the one on the leading edge, and there's one on the trailing edge. And then you got one in front of the control arm, as you can see there. So you got 4 of these on each side. So you can really, and what these stars do is once you dial it in there, it's not going to slip or come out. And so in other words, during cornering and all that stuff, you're not going to have the opportunity for the suspension to misalign or come at a camber or have those degrees change, because you have those locking mechanisms, those tabs in there. That's a patented system that Detroit Speed came up with years ago. So anyways, we did that. Because we got the motor lower in the car, we did not have to cut the tunnel, although I did want to have a trans tunnel cut for it, because like many things, we know when we have projects, we're going to continue to change things. And what I wanted to do was have, and I probably still will do it, there's still some things I wanted to change to this car, but what this is it allows you to basically, the motor being lowered allowed us to get the T56 Magnum in here without cutting the tunnel. However, I will modify the tunnel in the future, because if I want to go back and forth between some kind of automatic or a manual, the car would already be set up for it. So we did that. Extra roll cage was added. So before, this was a 6-point roll bar system. So it just had the main hoop, and then it had the down bars there. But what was added was these bars going up to the A-pillars and then across. So that was added for rigidity. And then also there were bars added in the rear, or back here. You can see these do an X, and they go into the subframe, but they also tie into the rear diff. And that's what'll keep that thing located. So you won't have this the opportunity for this rear diff to kind of start tearing away from the car, I think is significantly lower. And then obviously we added a bunch of gauges. So there's a flex fuel sensor to your bottom right. So pump E85 is what this thing runs off of at 13-to-1 compression. And, you know, from all the times I've put gas in it locally, we're normally sitting around 79 or 80% ethanol. But from your left to your right, you got, you know, obviously fuel, water temp. This will be a nitrous car, so you do see the fuel pressure for nitrous, and then your nitrous pressure, and then coming over you got your TAC, oil pressure, and then battery voltage and oil temp. So oil temp was added, flex fuel temperature or flex fuel content was added to the same style pod. So that's pretty much it. I'll tell you right off the back, with the way this car is, you pretty much need this thing needs a containment seat, like a legit seat now. These are Pro Car, you know, like a touring seat, and they're good. But what I'd like to do is put in like a like either a Momo or a Race Tech seat, which has the full containment, and then obviously have the seats lowered in the car, so a seat that just allows you to sit low in the car. That is pretty much it. And then we also updated the brakes. We went to a Willwood 6-piston caliper, 14-inch rotor up front. They're 2-piece rotors with an aluminum hat. And then we still got the 4-piston 12-inch rotors out back, which I will be updating eventually. So we also had the axles shortened. This is all done. All the chassis work was done by Dow Brothers Race Cars. So if you're on Instagram, check out Dow Brothers Race Cars. He does some pretty serious chassis work, full-on chassis builds and everything in between. So if you're ever in the Sacramento area, hit up Dow Brothers Race Cars if you need some serious chassis work. And so he was able to cut 3/4 of an inch off the left and right side axles. So overall, the axles are short 1.5 inches. So now we don't have any rubbing here. You can see, like, I got plenty room. So instead of a 335, my next set of tires would be 345s because they'll fit in here no problem. We got about 1.5 inches, 2 inches here outboard on the fender lip, and then going inboard. Well, let's take a look. The closest place inboard, we still got like 2 or 3 inches. So this will be running 345s. So that'll be something I'll do in the near future. One of the other changes is once we get a proper body and paint guy, what we'll do is we'll have these fenders flared, because I want to run a 305 or a 315 up front. How sick would that be? Imagine this thing pulling up with 315s up front and 345s out back. I mean, it's game over when this thing pulls up. This thing is pretty sick. So I'll also lower the rear. I'm going to drop it about 1 inch, just because we now clear. We don't have to worry about hitting anything as far as fender well or inner frame rail. This thing clears completely. But with the front, I'm going to, like I said, get those fenders widened. But I want to keep them in line with the factory body panel, or the flow of the body panel. It looks really good. I mean, look at that style. I think Ford had a really good just a really good feel on this car. But this car stock, you would have never, like, this thing stock never it just, to me, it although it looks good, I mean, it definitely needed some stance on it. It needed some appearance of widening. So this car isn't a wide body. It has been tubbed, but it has not been wide bodied. Wide bodied, I would consider when you actually bring fenders and body panels away from their original place, would be wide body. So I would like to do some of that action up front. And I think that'll really make things look sick. And we should be able to get this hood scoop back on now that we trimmed the air filter stud. We should be able to get this filter back on. So I'll give this thing one more start, and then I'll sign off out of here. But I do want to answer any questions, or just kind of get a conversation going about 3rd-gen Falcons and some builds and all that kind of stuff. So those of you out there who, I mean, I see these cars all the time. I see folks posting updates on their builds, and and what their situation is, and kind of what their plans are. And I just see builds of every type. So every time I see these platforms being built, I just get excited because I know for a long time, especially the third gens, which are 66 through 69s, these cars were basically a forgotten, like, well, that's why they have the page called Forgotten Falcon. So I definitely, every time I see that, I'm pretty excited just because, not that I expect people to make parts for these cars, but the more the demand is there, the more you're likely going to get, companies to start making body panels, or even panels that are in like composites. Like if we could get a fiberglass hood or a carbon fiber hood, stuff like that, I'd be all on it. Like if I could put a carbon fiber hood on this car, we're talking about at least 40 pounds off the nose. So little stuff like that, I think would be like a good improvement. If I could get some glass panels on the fenders, again, good improvements. So yeah, and then with this thing here, I think it's in a really good spot now. Like I said, other than the changes the slow updates that I'll make over the next year or so, nothing really needs to be done to it. I mean, this thing, it made 716 and 592 on a wet sump with a wet sump oiling system, and then you also had 1 7/8 headers. This thing's now on 2-inch full length, 3.5-inch collector coming all the way through a Borla XR1 race muffler, straight through, all the way out basically the side. So what I want to do is get some GoPro attachments hooked up and take you guys on the road and let you guys hear this thing. I haven't even gotten into it, honestly, because this thing makes some serious power. So it's just one of those things I'm gonna have to ease my way into. I can't just ease my way into 700 plus horsepower and just think that it's gonna be, So that's one of the things I plan on doing here shortly. So stay tuned on a video on that. But eventually we would like to put the induction solution sledgehammer kit on this car. And so that kit was flowed by John at Induction Solutions. And on race gas, he flowed it up to 600. We have the jets from increments of 50 all the way to 600. Nitrous jets in increments of 50, from 50 to 600 on race gas, and then 50 to 550 on E85. Realistically, I think all in maybe 300-400 shot of nitrous will be doable. We have the fuel system to do it. We got the Weldon Big Daddy pump, which will support well over 2,000 horsepower. This car, full tilt, all in, on the spray, I know it's capable of over 1,000 at the wheel. So could you imagine a little old Falcon like this? Definitely came a long ways to even try and think about, and this is all motor, other than, like I said, when we do decide to spray. But this thing is all motor, and I mean, it is a serious machine. One thing I will say is I believe because we swapped out to the dry sump oiling circuit, we never dynoed after swapping back to dry sump or the larger headers, but generally you're going to find more power there because you have less windage, you have better ring seal, and you have vacuum underneath the piston. So instead of the same forces that a piston fights going up, in a wet sump system, it fights those same forces coming down. When you have vacuum pulling negative vacuum from beneath the pistons, that's going to significantly pick up on power. No windage. So a dry sump system on a motor like this, I've heard anywhere from 15 to 50 horsepower. I've heard figures using it from anywhere from 6 to 10%. So I think it's safe to say, we definitely picked up power just by running a dry sump system. Plus the oil circuit's a lot happier. You don't have all the oil just sitting in the pan. So pretty trick system from Aviade. But anyways, you can see that Induction Solutions plate kit. It's not hooked up, but the thing was to get both of those to fit with my old carbon fiber hood scoop. So because we we shaved the carburetor stud down, we should be able to get it to fit. So anyways, here's how the car sits now. But like I said, we'll definitely do some more. We'll definitely be doing some more work and continuous improvements through over the next few years. So if I can, there's some places where I want to take some weight out of the car. So I'll definitely take weight out of the car. All that kind of stuff that you want to extract performance. Weight is free horsepower. It's free in terms of less wear on materials, less heat. Anything you can do to reduce weight is just right there. So anyways, I think that's about it for now. I just decided to jump on and come live. I could have done a short and then just uploaded it after the fact, but I figured, hey, jump on here live and let any questions that need to be answered, or comments or whatever, please just throw them out there and we'll get the discussion started. So for the Falcon community, as always, all Falcons for sure, but 66 through 69 or 70 U.S. Ford Falcons, much love. There is a gathering of the California or Falcon Club of America, Sonoma chapter. I believe they are gathering this next week or so in Sonoma, California. I would really like to get out there because I know those guys have been following me for a couple years and I've been aware of them. This thing up until this year was under the knife for the last 2 years between the 408 swap and the T56 Magnum, the Detroit Speed, all the chassis work. So this thing was down for a while, but right now I'm in town. So it's something I've just been wanting to do is get out and meet some of the local, hardcore Falcon guys. I know in Australia, huge shout out to the Australian Falcon faithful. I'm gonna just give a shout out right now to Russell Eden. There's a few of you guys, man, that are hardcore. Oh, Dwight Varnes, who is the moderator of U.S. Ford Falcons. Huge shout out to you. I see your series on YouTube. Go check out his channel. He has a really good knowledge and breakdown of the third gen Falcons, and I believe he's doing a restoration. So go check out Dwight Varnes' YouTube channel. Really a lot of information because you don't have much info out here on these cars just because they were not very popular in their day. So a lot of the information ends up with guys who were either around and kept that knowledge, or in Australia, guys offshore. So you have to really compile data on something like this from a lot of different sources. And so I fortunately throughout the years have just kind of been aware of that, but then also just kind of, a lot of Falcon building is like, okay, what from the Mustang will work? What can we use from the Mustang? And then whatever is different than the Mustang, we'll just work around. And so generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, these cars are essentially a cross between a Mustang and a Fairlane. So Fairlane is all firewall and floor pans. So when you think of floor pans and firewall, think Fairlane. When you think of suspension attachment points, engine mount location points, transmission, think Mustang. That's the best way I can describe it. So if you're talking seats, right, you want seats to bolt in, you're thinking Fairlane, right? Because the floor pan is already, all those holes are already pre-drilled if you're talking about a stock car. That's probably the best way I would describe it. But floor pans and firewall, fenders, that's all Fairlane. Location, attachment points, Mustang. So anyways, I think that's it for now, but look forward for a couple videos from this. I want to do a couple launches. I got to go find a safe place where I can just launch this bad boy. I think it's going to go straight, but this is next level for me. And I respect the power. I'm not just going to, stab it on the streets in a residential or even on the freeway. You got to really be careful. I think this thing would probably spin all the way through third gear, and we're on an R compound tire. So yeah, she's the real deal. This car's definitely come a long way. So, anyways, let me just give you guys a couple shots, some walk-arounds before I sign off. Every time I look at this car, I try and say, hey, I'm signing off, but I just think it's it's just such a badass setup that it would be short of me just to kind of say, oh, we're done and not do a walk around. If you have to walk, if you can leave your car without walking back, you probably got the wrong car. You should always look back. So, I mean, look at that. That's a beast of an engine. Built by California Street Machine, also known as CSM Racing Engines. Builds a ton of engines for some of the street outlaws. Check him out. He's on Instagram, CSM Racing Engines. The interior. Love that Sparco steering wheel. And that's pretty much it. So, anyways, fam, if any questions on this bad boy, please let me know. The back shot, so you guys can see the stance from the rear. That's a 335 3018 Curry 9-inch. You can see the exhaust making those 45-degree exits right in front of the rear tires. That's 3.5-inch, and that's a Borla XR1 straight through muffler. So 2-inch headers to 3.5-inch. 2-inch headers to 3.5-inch primaries coming straight out the side. So I think the best way to show you guys this is get it on the lift, and then we can really see what this thing is underneath. But yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. So, Fred, yes. So yes, 716 592 was with wet sump oiling system, the Aviade road race drag race oil pan, and yes, 716 592 on an engine dyno was just all motor. That's correct to answer that question. The video's on the channel too. We actually dynoed this thing twice. We first cam was an LSM cam, and the duration was like 282 296 at 50. So that was a huge cam. So we knocked it back to a 271 281 at 50, and we were able to make a lot more torque and have a broad power band. We actually picked up like 50 pounds of torque with the second cam, and then this thing made like 500 pounds of torque from like 4,500 RPM all the way through 7,500. We stopped the dyno pull at 7,500, but it was still making over 700 horsepower at 7,500, and that's where that last dyno pull ended. The carburetor was done by Kevin at CSU. You guys can't see it, but it's a Holley XP 950, and we had to send that out because it was nowhere near ready for the fuel demand the first time around. So yeah, that was pretty much it. Yep, without spray. So we never dynoed this thing with spray because we ended up ordering the induction solution sledgehammer kit later after the fact. But we knew we were gonna eventually spray it. Most engine dyno, like the engine dyno that we used, he wasn't gonna. We didn't want to ask him to spray the motor on that dyno. So a lot of dynos, engine dynos, some guys don't want to have nitrous spray because nitrous can tear stuff up. Is the way it just comes on. But we do have, like I said, John at Induction Solutions hooked us up with a sledgehammer kit. It has 2 solenoids. It's got that guy, and then they call it a trash can solenoid. There's that big one back there. Part number 19716. But this thing should move as much nitrous and fuel through the systems as our fuel system will allow. Which our fuel system, let me show you that right quick because sorry, so many vendors you kind of start losing track of names. But if I can find that trunk key, it was just around here. Anyways, the vendor for the fuel pump is it's a Weldon pump. So Weldon is a big boy pump. This thing, the pump that it is, will run off diesel, ethanol, race gas, methanol, just about any kind of fuel that you'll see in automotive racing. That pump will run off of. So, anyways, yes, that is pretty much it. But like I said, my goal is to get this thing up on a lift. I'll probably take it to the hobby shop, get it up on the lift, and then we'll kind of just do a walk around and go all over the car, hop all over it, and that way you guys can kind of see what this thing what was used to put this thing together. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And then you can see the regulator actually there. But the fuel system was spec'd out by CSM Racing Engines and Wizard Racing. They actually spec'd out the entire fuel system from the carburetor, the 2-6s heading to the carburetor, to the regulator, to the inline fuel filter, the post-pump filter, and the pre-pump and post-pump filters, all the way through to the carburetor. They basically spec'd out the entire system, the size of the fuel pump, all that jazz. So yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah, I think I'll go ahead and sign off now, unless there's any last minute questions. But yeah, that dyno video is on the channel. If you go back, I forget the name of it, but it's called what is it called? You'll see it on my channel. I mean, it's been widely known and kind of, you know, posted in the Falcon community and all the Ford small block Windsors and Ford Racing Engine groups on Facebook. So anyways, I think that's about it. I'll sign off here. If there's any questions, because this video will still allow you guys to comment after the fact because it'll stay saved, please chime in, ask questions. I'm going to share it in some of the Facebook groups. And if you guys like it and you guys, again, just share it amongst your communities and get the conversation started, we can do it that way. So I try and bring you guys as much content as possible, and that's about it. So without further ado, we'll see you guys next time, and definitely appreciate you guys for following the build and just being patient with me. And yeah, we look forward to having more trick stuff. So we'll see you guys later. All right, take care. Peace.